Asterisk, many years ago, Dale Carnegie noticed something that most people still don't understand. People are not logical. They are emotional, and most of the time, they don't want advice. They want understanding. Carnegie used to say that the biggest mistake in human relationships is trying to prove you are right instead of trying to be kind. He once joked that if arguing actually worked, every marriage on earth would be perfectly happy by now. But arguments don't work. Criticism doesn't work. Pressure doesn't work. Understanding works. Let's start with something simple. Making friends. Most people think they need confidence, charisma, or clever jokes to be liked. Carnegie disagreed. He said you don't need to be interesting. You need to be interested. He told a story about a man who attended a dinner party and talked nonstop about his own achievements. At the end of the evening, the woman he spoke with said he was fascinating. Why? Because he let her talk? Carnegie loved that story because it showed a strange truth. People think good conversation is talking. In reality, it's listening. When someone talks about themselves, their brain lights up. They feel important, they feel comfortable, and they like the person who gave them that feeling. That's why Carnegie said one of the most powerful skills in life is learning how to listen without interrupting, not pretending to listen, not waiting for your turn, actually listening. Now, let's talk about criticism. Carnegie said that criticism is like killing a fly with a hammer. You might hit the fly, but you also destroy the table. He gave many examples of famous people who failed because they humiliated others instead of understanding them. One of his favorite examples was Abraham Lincoln. When Lincoln was young, he wrote harsh letters to people who upset him, but he never sent them. He put them in a drawer. Later, when he became president, he said something remarkable. He said he never wrote an angry letter that he later regretted not sending, because anger passes. Words remain. Carnegie believed that when you criticize someone, you don't change their behavior. You only make them defensive. And a defensive person never learns. That's why he said it's better to say nothing than to say something that wounds pride. Pride, according to Carnegie, is the most sensitive part of the human personality. You can hurt a person's body and they may forgive you, but hurt their pride and they remember forever. Now let's talk about worry. Carnegie said that worry is the interest. We pay on a debt we don't owe. Most people worry about things that never happen. And even when bad things do happen, they are usually not as bad as imagined. Carnegie told a story about a man who lost his job, his money, and his reputation all at once. The man thought his life was over. But years later, he said, that day was the worst day of my life, and I survived it. So why should I worry about tomorrow? Carnegie loved that story because it showed something powerful. We are stronger than we think. One of Carnegie's most famous ideas was called day-tight compartments. He said, imagine your life like a ship. If water from yesterday leaks in, the ship sinks. If water from tomorrow leaks in, the ship sinks. You must seal today. Live today only. Not yesterday. Not tomorrow. Just today. He said that most worry comes from trying to live in 2 days at once. When you focus on now, fear loses its power. Carnegie also said that the best way to defeat worry is to face it directly. Ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen? Accept it, then calmly work to improve it. Once you accept the worst, fear often disappears. Now let's talk about understanding people. Carnegie believed that every person you meet is walking around with an invisible sign that says, make me feel important. Not falsely important. Honestly important. This is why small gestures matter so much. Remembering someone's name, smiling when you see them, thanking them sincerely. Carnegie said that a person's name is the sweetest sound in any language to that person. He once told a story about a manager who completely changed his workplace by doing one thing. He started praising people for small improvements, not big achievements. Small improvements. Productivity increased. Morale increased. People became loyal. Why? Because appreciation feeds the human soul. Carnegie warned, however, that appreciation must be sincere. Flattery doesn't work. people can smell fake praise instantly. Sincere appreciation is specific. It notices effort, not just results. Now let's talk about influence. Carnegie said, the only way to win an argument is to avoid it. Because even if you win, you lose. You lose goodwill, you lose trust, you lose connection. He said that if you want someone to agree with you, start by agreeing with them. Say, yes, I understand. That one sentence lowers defenses. People don't resist ideas. They resist feeling controlled. Carnegie believed that influence is not pushing people. It's guiding them. If you want someone to do something, make them feel happy about doing it. People support ideas they feel they chose themselves. Carnegie told a humorous story about a man who wanted his son to read more books. Instead of forcing him, he started reading himself. The son became curious. Soon, the boy was reading more than the father. Influence works best when it's invisible. Now, let's return to worry one last time. Carnegie said that busy people worry less. Action is the antidote to fear. When you act, your mind has no time to imagine disasters. He recommended filling your life with meaningful activity. Work, service, learning. He also said that helping others is one of the fastest ways to stop worrying about yourself. When you shift attention outward, anxiety loses its grip. Carnegie believed that life becomes easier when you stop asking, what do I get? And start asking, how can I help? That mindset changes everything. In the end, Carnegie wasn't teaching tricks. He was teaching respect for human nature, understand people, accept people, encourage people, and you'll discover something surprising. Friends come naturally. Influence comes quietly. And worry slowly fades away. Asterisk many years ago, Dale Carnegie said something very simple. You can make more friends in 2 months by being interested in other people than in 2 years by trying to make people interested in you. And this one sentence explains almost everything about human psychology. Let's start with friends and influence. Most people talk too much. They talk about themselves, their problems, their opinions. Carnegie noticed something funny. People don't want to be impressed. They want to be understood. One time, Carnegie told a story about a man who went to a dinner party. The man talked all night about himself. At the end of the evening, the woman said he was a great conversationalist. Why? Because he listened. First rule, be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. If you do that, people will like you, even if you say very little. Now, let's talk about criticism. Carnegie said, any fool can criticize, complain, and condemn, and most fools do. Criticism hurts pride, and pride is one thing people protect more than money. There was a story about Abraham Lincoln. When he was young, he wrote angry letters to people who offended him, but he never sent them. He learned something important. When emotions are hot, words destroy relationships. Second rule, don't criticize. Try to understand. Now, let's move to worry. Carnegie said worry comes from living in the past or the future. He used a simple idea called day-tight compartments. Imagine your day is like a ship. Water from yesterday should not leak in. Water from tomorrow should not leak in. Live today. Just today, Carnegie told a story about a man who lost everything. His business failed. He was ruined, but later he said, I survived the worst day of my life, so why should I worry about tomorrow? Rule. For worry, ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen? Accept it. Then calmly work to improve it. Most fears disappear when faced directly. Now, about understanding people. Carnegie said, every person you meet has an invisible sign that says, make me feel important, and not falsely important. Honestly important. A simple smile, remembering a name, a sincere compliment. These small things change everything. Carnegie once said, a person's name is the sweetest sound in any language to that person. Finally, influence. If you want someone to agree with you, don't start with disagreement. Start with, yes, I understand. People open their minds only when their ego feels safe. Last rule, make the other person feel happy about doing what you suggest. No pressure. No force. Just understanding human nature. That's not manipulation. That's wisdom. And Carnegie proved one thing clearly. If you understand people, stop worrying about yourself, and focus on others, life becomes lighter, people become kinder, and influence comes naturally.
How to stop worrying, sleep better, and start living. Part 4. There is a moment many people recognize but rarely talk about. It happens late in the evening, sometimes just before sleep. The house is quiet. The phone is finally silent. Nothing is demanding attention, and yet the mind suddenly becomes loud. Thoughts appear that were quiet all day. Old worries return. Small problems grow larger. The mind starts asking questions that have no answers at that hour. Dale Carnegie understood this moment very well. He knew that silence often makes worry louder. During the day, activity distracts the mind. At night, distraction disappears. That is when unresolved tension speaks. Many people believe the solution is to control these thoughts, to fight them, to push them away. But Carnegie believed the opposite. What you fight, you give attention to, and attention feeds worry. Instead of fighting thoughts, he encouraged people to change their relationship with them. A thought is not a command. It is not a fact. It is just a mental event. You do not have to follow every thought the way you do not have to answer every knock at the door. This simple idea alone reduces enormous stress. Carnegie often said that peace begins when people stop believing everything they think. The mind is a useful tool, but a poor master. Another source of stress Carnegie observed was the habit of emotional forecasting. People constantly predict how future events will feel. They imagine discomfort, embarrassment, failure, disappointment, and the body reacts as if these predictions were already true. Heart rate increases, muscles tighten, sleep becomes lighter. But here is the strange truth. Humans are very bad at predicting emotions. Things we fear often feel less intense when they actually happen, and things we ignore sometimes affect us more. Carnegie would gently point out that worrying about future pain often causes more suffering than the pain itself. You suffer twice, once in imagination, once in reality, if it happens at all. Another habit that quietly feeds stress is the need for certainty. People want guarantees. They want clear outcomes. They want to know how everything will turn out. But life does not offer guarantees. Trying to force certainty where none exists creates constant tension. Carnegie believed that accepting uncertainty was one of the greatest mental freedoms. Not giving up, not being careless, simply accepting that some things cannot be fully known in advance. This acceptance allows the nervous system to relax. A mind that demands certainty never rests. A mind that tolerates uncertainty can sleep. Carnegie also spoke about the importance of simplifying mental rules. Many people live with a long list of shoulds. I should always be productive. I should always know the right answer. I should always stay calm. I should never make mistakes. These rules create constant pressure. Carnegie encouraged people to replace rigid rules with flexible principles. Instead of, I should never fail, use, I will learn and adjust. Instead of, I must control everything, use, I will do my best with what I can control. Flexible thinking reduces stress because it gives the mind room to breathe. Then there is the habit of postponing peace. Many people say, I'll relax when this is over, when work is finished, when problems are solved, when life becomes easier. But life rarely reaches a point where nothing is wrong. Waiting for perfect conditions to feel calm means never feeling calm. Carnegie believed that peace must be practiced inside imperfect conditions, not after stress ends, but while life continues. Another important theme in Carnegie's work was attention to the present moment, not in a mystical way, in a practical way. When attention stays in the present, worry loses fuel. Worry needs the future. Regret needs the past. The present moment is usually manageable. Carnegie encouraged people to ask simple questions. What is required of me right now? What can I do in this moment? These questions ground the mind. A grounded mind rests better. Carnegie also understood the power of small routines. Big changes often fail. Small habits succeed. A short walk, a regular bedtime, a quiet moment before sleep. These habits send signals to the nervous system. You are safe. The day is ending. Sleep responds to signals, not instructions. Another powerful observation Carnegie made was about meaning. People tolerate stress better when they feel their effort matters. Stress becomes overwhelming when it feels pointless. Carnegie believed that connecting daily effort to a larger purpose reduced anxiety. Not a dramatic purpose, sometimes a simple one. Providing for family, helping others, improving one small thing. Meaning steadies the mind. Then there is forgiveness, another underestimated stress reducer. Holding grudges, especially against oneself, keeps the mind tense. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is releasing the need to replay. Carnegie believed forgiveness was less about morality and more about mental health. A mind that constantly revisits past wrongs cannot rest. Letting go creates space for sleep. Another quiet source of stress is constant stimulation. The modern mind rarely experiences silence. Noise fills every gap. Screens fill every pause. Carnegie lived in a different era, but he understood overstimulation well. He encouraged people to create moments without input. No advice, no information, no problem solving, just mental stillness. Stillness allows recovery, and recovery is not optional. Carnegie often reminded people that the body has limits and the mind does too. Ignoring limits does not make them disappear. It makes consequences appear. Finally, Carnegie returned again and again to one idea that sounds simple but is deeply challenging. Choose your thoughts the way you choose your actions. Not every thought deserves attention. Not every worry deserves energy. Learning to let thoughts pass without engagement is a skill. It takes practice, but it works. And when it works, stress softens, sleep deepens, life feels lighter. Not perfect, not problem-free, but manageable. And that was always Carnegie's goal. Not to promise happiness, but to reduce unnecessary suffering. Because when worry loosens its grip, energy returns, clarity improves, and life becomes something you participate in, not something you endure.
How to stop worrying, sleep better, and start living. Most people do not notice when worry becomes part of their daily routine. It does not arrive loudly. It does not announce itself. It simply settles in, like background noise, until one day you realize that silence has disappeared. Many people say, "Nothing is really wrong, but I feel tired all the time." That sentence explains modern stress better than any complex psychological theory. Life does not have to be dramatic to be exhausting. Sometimes it is exhausting simply because the mind never stops talking. Dale Carnegie understood this long before emails, smartphones, and constant notifications. He noticed that people were not worn out by hard work alone. They were worn out because they never mentally left their problems. The body may be sitting safely at home, but the mind is still at the office, still in conversations, still solving problems that cannot be solved right now. And the mind is very convincing when it worries. It speaks calmly. It sounds serious. It says things like, "You should think about this. No, be prepared. No, if you relax, something bad might happen." So people listen. They carry worry as if it were a sign of responsibility, not realizing that it quietly drains their energy. One man once said, "I feel guilty when I rest." That single sentence explains why stress often wins. Worry feels useful, but it rarely is. It feels like preparation, but it produces no plan. It feels like caring, but it creates no solution. Worry is the mind chewing the same thought again and again, hoping it will somehow change. It never does. That is why so many people wake up already tired. They have not done anything yet, but their mind has already worked a full shift, and then they wonder why sleep feels shallow. Sleep does not disappear because people forget how to sleep. Sleep disappears because the nervous system never receives permission to stand down. A body cannot rest while the mind is still on duty. Many people lie in bed at night replaying conversations. They argue with people who are not there. They plan speeches for situations that may never happen. And then they say, "I have insomnia." Often, they do not have insomnia. They have an overworked mind. One of the most practical ideas Dale Carnegie ever shared was also one of the simplest. Live in day-tight compartments. He did not mean this as poetry. He meant it as survival. Most stress comes from carrying too much time at once. Yesterday brings regret. Tomorrow brings fear. Today brings responsibility. People carry all three together and wonder why they collapse. Carnegie suggested something radical in its simplicity. Carry only today. Yesterday is finished. You cannot improve it by losing sleep tonight. Tomorrow has not arrived. You cannot prepare for it by worrying now. This idea sounds almost too simple, which is why many people ignore it. But simple ideas are often ignored until exhaustion makes them necessary. Another idea Carnegie returned to again and again was acceptance. Not passive acceptance, but realistic acceptance. Worry thrives on resistance. The mind fights reality and exhausts itself in the process. People say, "This should not be happening," but it is happening. Arguing with facts does not change them. It only drains energy. Carnegie encouraged people to ask one powerful question: what is the worst that can realistically happen? Not to scare themselves, but to remove uncertainty. Unclear fear is exhausting. Once the worst is clearly named, the mind often relaxes. And here comes one of Carnegie's quiet truths about life. Most of the time, the worst never happens anyway. People suffer through imaginary pain for years over events that never arrive. They lose sleep over disasters that exist only in their imagination. Another thing Carnegie understood deeply was fatigue. He believed many emotional problems were simply tiredness in disguise. A tired mind exaggerates. It loses perspective. It turns small problems into large ones. A rested mind thinks clearly. It solves problems faster and with less suffering. That is why Carnegie insisted on rest before analysis. Sleep first, then think. Trying to solve life while exhausted is like fixing a car while blindfolded. And yet, people do this every day. They skip rest, skip sleep, and then judge themselves harshly for feeling overwhelmed. Carnegie would gently say, "You are not weak. You are tired." That sentence alone has helped countless people. Then there is humor, a topic Carnegie treated with great respect. Humor is not denial. It is distance. When people can laugh at a problem, the problem loses some of its power. Carnegie noticed that people who could smile at their own mistakes recovered faster. They did not turn one awkward moment into a lifelong label. They said, "Well, that was uncomfortable," and moved on. Others said, "This proves I am a failure," and carried it to bed for years. Same event, different story. And stories matter, because the mind lives inside stories. Change the story, and the nervous system changes with it. Carnegie loved simple metaphors. One of the most famous is about lemons. If life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Not because lemonade fixes everything, but because resistance wastes energy. Complaining all night does not remove the lemons. Doing something with them changes the experience. Carnegie never promised an easy life. He promised a lighter one. A life where the mind does not make everything heavier than it already is. Another major source of stress Carnegie observed was the fear of other people's opinions. People lie awake worrying about what someone might think or say. They replay conversations, searching for mistakes that others have already forgotten. Carnegie reminded people of a simple truth. Most people are far too busy thinking about themselves to think about you. The imagined audience in our head is usually much larger than the real one. Trying to manage everyone else's opinion is an impossible task. Letting go of that task frees enormous energy. And then there is perfectionism. Perfectionists rarely rest. Even success does not satisfy them, because they immediately raise the standard. Carnegie noticed that perfectionism keeps the nervous system in constant tension. Life does not reward flawlessness. It rewards progress. Even an imperfect decision often brings more peace than endless hesitation. An undecided mind stays alert. A decided mind can rest. And rest is not laziness. Rest is maintenance. A machine that never stops breaks. A mind that never rests does the same. Carnegie believed that many people were not anxious by nature. They were simply exhausted. He once joked that half of humanity's problems could be solved by going to bed earlier. And he was not wrong. A rested brain sees options. A tired brain sees threats. Finally, Carnegie returned again and again to one quiet idea. You cannot control life, but you can control how much of it you carry in your head. Most peace does not come from fixing everything. It comes from putting things down. Putting down yesterday. Putting down tomorrow. Putting down the need to control everything. And allowing the mind, at least for the night, to rest. Because the mind, like the body, needs sleep. And perhaps that is why Carnegie's ideas still work today. Human nature has not changed. We still worry too much. We still rehearse disasters. We still confuse exhaustion with responsibility. And we still forget that living well often begins not with solving life, but with learning when to stop thinking about it. The mind is a terrible alarm system asterisk. If the human mind were an alarm system, it would be very unreliable. It would go off at the wrong time. It would scream when there is no danger. And when real rest is possible, it would keep buzzing anyway. Most people do not notice this because the noise feels normal. The mind says, think about this again. Then it says, just in case. Then it says, you can relax yet. And little by little, tension becomes a habit. Here is the strange part. The body listens. Even when you are sitting safely at home, the body reacts as if something urgent is happening. Muscles tighten. Breathing becomes shallow. Sleep becomes light and fragile. All because of thoughts. The mind does not know the difference between a real problem and an imagined one. It reacts to both in the same way. This is why a simple email can ruin an evening. This is why a small mistake can steal an entire night of sleep. This is why people feel exhausted after doing nothing all day. They were doing something. They were worrying. A man once said, I don't work that hard, but I am always tired. That sentence explains modern stress perfectly. Mental work without rest is still work. Many people believe they must think about problems all the time, or they are being careless. But constant thinking does not create solutions. It creates fatigue. Think of it this way. If you carried a heavy backpack all day, you would eventually need to put it down. You would not say, I'll rest later, maybe next week. But people do this with their minds every day. They carry worries to breakfast. They carry them to work. They bring them home. And at night, they put the backpack next to the bed and keep holding it. Then they wonder why they cannot sleep. The truth is simple and uncomfortable. Your mind was never meant to be on all the time. Rest is not laziness. Rest is maintenance. A machine that never stops breaks. A mind that never rests does the same. This book is not about stopping all thoughts. That would be impossible. It is about learning when thinking is useful, and when it is only noise. Because once you can tell the difference, stress loses much of its power, and sleep begins to return.
Introduction. Why we need to talk about stress. Today we are talking about stress. Not the stress of one bad day, but the kind of stress that quietly builds up and slowly affects sleep, mental health, and the joy of everyday life. Dale Carnegie once wrote something very simple, yet very powerful. Our life is what our thoughts make it. And that sentence alone explains why stress is not just about events, but about how the mind reacts to them. Chapter 1. Stress does not start in the calendar. Many people believe stress comes from work, deadlines, or responsibility, but two people can live through the exact same day, and only one of them goes to bed exhausted and restless. Why? Dale Carnegie believed that stress is not created by situations themselves, but by the way we think about them. He wrote, "It isn't the events themselves that disturb us, but the thoughts we have about those events. Stress, in other words, begins in the mind." A simple Carnegie-style story. A man constantly complained about his job. Too much work, too little appreciation, endless pressure. One day a friend asked him, "If you quit tomorrow, what would you do first?" The man answered without hesitation, "I would finally sleep." And that was the real problem. The job did not steal his sleep. His thoughts did. Chapter 2. Sleep is not a luxury. It's nervous system care. Dale Carnegie spoke often about fatigue. He believed that many worries are not psychological problems, but symptoms of exhaustion. He once said, "In essence, fatigue magnifies our problems. A tired mind thinks poorly. A tired mind overreacts. A tired mind turns small issues into big ones." Sleep is not about comfort. It is about mental hygiene. A small but honest truth. A well-rested person says, "Let us deal with this tomorrow." A sleep-deprived person says, "This is a disaster." Same situation, different nervous system. Chapter 3. Living in day-tight compartments. One of Dale Carnegie's most famous ideas is the concept of living in day-tight compartments. The idea is simple. Today is today. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow has not arrived yet. Most people carry yesterday's mistakes, tomorrow's fears, and today's responsibilities, all at the same time. No nervous system can handle that. Carnegie said, "Live in day-tight compartments." A visual image. Imagine a cabinet with drawers. Each drawer is one day. In the morning, you open only today's drawer. In the evening, you close it. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Stress often comes from opening all the drawers at once. Chapter 4. When worry steals sleep. Many people lie awake at night thinking about problems they cannot solve at that moment. Dale Carnegie would have said, "That is like trying to change a tire at night, without tools, in the dark." Night is not for problem solving. Night is for recovery. Carnegie's advice for nighttime worry. His approach was practical. Define the problem clearly. Write it down. Decide. Act today or later. Then let it rest. Thoughts don't need to be solved at night. They need to be organized. Chapter 5. Accept the worst and calm the mind. One of Carnegie's most powerful methods sounds strange at first. He advised people to ask, "What is the worst realistic outcome?" Not to scare yourself, but to remove uncertainty. Once the worst is clearly defined, the fear often loses its power. Carnegie suggested, identify the worst-case scenario, accept it mentally, then calmly improve the situation. Acceptance reduces stress because resistance disappears. A touch of humor. Most of the things we worry about never happen, and the things that do happen are rarely as bad as we imagined. In modern language, we often suffer from problems that never make it onto the calendar. Chapter 6. If life gives you lemons. Dale Carnegie loved simple metaphors. One of the most famous is, if life hands you lemons, make lemonade. Not because lemons are great, but because resistance drains energy. Stress often comes not from the problem itself, but from fighting reality. A short story. One man complained endlessly about the rain. Another used the rain to water his garden. Same rain, different outcome. Chapter 7. Reducing stress does not mean avoiding problems. Carnegie did not promote escape. He promoted clear action. Worry paralyzes. Action releases tension. He believed that busy, purposeful people worry less because their energy moves forward, not because they have no problems, but because they don't live inside them. Transition to part 2. So far, we've learned stress begins in thinking. Sleep is essential. Worry needs structure. Acceptance creates calm. In the next part, we will talk about self-criticism, fear of other people's opinions, gratitude as a stress counterweight, and why humor can save the nervous system.
Why people worry more than they should asterisk. Most people do not realize how much time they spend worrying. They think worry appears only when something bad happens. In reality, worry often exists even on calm days, when nothing is truly wrong. A person can wake up in the morning, drink coffee, go to work, talk to others, and still carry a quiet tension inside. Nothing dramatic happens, yet the mind feels tired. By evening, sleep becomes shallow, and the body feels heavy. Why? The reason is simple, but not obvious. People do not suffer because life is hard all the time. They suffer because they carry life inside their head without rest. Worry is not always loud. It does not always feel like fear. Often, it feels like thinking about what might go wrong, thinking about what should have been said, thinking about what others might think, thinking about tomorrow, next week, next year. The human mind is very good at creating problems that do not exist yet. This habit did not start as a mistake. Long ago, worrying helped people survive. It helped them prepare for danger. But modern life has changed, while the nervous system has not. Today, the mind reacts to emails the same way it once reacted to wild animals. The body tightens, breathing becomes shallow, sleep becomes light. The problem is not thinking itself. The problem is never stopping. Many people believe that worrying means being responsible. They think, if I stop worrying, something bad will happen. But this belief quietly destroys rest, health, and peace of mind. Here is a simple truth. Worry without action does not protect you. It only exhausts you. A tired mind makes worse decisions, not better ones. A tired mind sees danger everywhere. A tired mind cannot rest, even when the body is safe. That is why this book exists, not to teach you how to control life. That is impossible, but to help you learn how to stop carrying unnecessary weight in your thoughts, how to rest without guilt, and how to live with more calm, even when life remains imperfect. You do not need to change your personality. You do not need to become fearless. You do not need to force positive thinking. You only need to understand one thing first. Most of your worry is not happening in the world. It is happening in your mind. And anything that happens in the mind can be understood, adjusted, and softened. That is where we will begin.